This is the wild game jerky recipe that I use every single year because nothing else even comes close. We work hard for our meat and it deserves a recipe that's going to do it some justice. This recipe is a little bit peppery, it's a little bit smoky, it's a little bit sweet, and it's great on wild game like elk, venison, and turkey, but it would be really great on beef too. This recipe works if you're using an oven, a dehydrator, or a smoker, and I know you're gonna love it, so let's get started. For this recipe, we're gonna use soy sauce, teriyaki sauce, garlic, salt, pepper, brown sugar, molasses, Lawry's, red pepper flakes, and some liquid smoke. And we're gonna use about 7 pounds of meat. You could do anywhere between 5 to 10. This is just what was convenient for us to pull out, but you do wanna kind of get your money's worth with this marinade you're making, so all the way up to 10 pounds if you have it. You're gonna get your pot ready by adding 8 cups of water to build your marinade off of. Then you're gonna add a half a cup of salt as well as 2 pounds or one of those bags of brown sugar. A half a cup of molasses. 2 cups of teriyaki sauce. A 1/4 cup of soy sauce, a sprinkle of red pepper flakes, depending on how spicy you like it. We like for our kids to be able to eat this along with us, so it's probably like a teaspoon or 2, but you could definitely do more or less. Then 3 tablespoons of black pepper, 2 tablespoons of Lawry's, 3 tablespoons of minced garlic, and then 1 to 2 caps of liquid smoke, as long as you're cooking it in the oven or the dehydrator. If you're gonna smoke this jerky, don't use any of the liquid smoke. It'll come out way too smoky flavored. So 1 to 2 caps as long as it's in the oven or the dehydrator. Then you're gonna mix that all up, make sure all that salt and brown sugar is dissolved and everything is really well incorporated. It's easier to slice your meat if it's still a little bit frozen, so we usually pull it out of the freezer an hour or 2 before we're ready to cut, especially if you're going to be using a knife and not a meat slicer. This is really important. We try to get our pieces anywhere between 1/8 to 1/4 inch thick, and it really is just up to personal preference if you like it, thicker or thinner. You can really customize this to how you like it best. Same as anything, if you cut against the grain, it's going to be a more tender jerky, and if you cut it with the grain, it's going to be a little chewier. Getting all that meat added to the brine and getting it really well mixed up. And it's important to keep stirring this throughout its marinade time, just so you're sure that everything gets coated really well and all the flavor is really even. And you can marinate it for as long as is convenient for you. You can do it for as little as 24 hours. We go all the way up to 72 hours. So it's really just kind of what works with your schedule. You want to be stirring it at least once a day throughout the marinade time, and maybe 2 or 3 times would be even better. Now for the oven, you can see we built that little grate over the top of the burners, and then we lined it with additional cookie sheets to be able to support some of the smaller pieces. And some people like to dry it off, and that does cut down on dry time, but we found that it impacts the flavor for us, so we just kind of shake it off and lay it right there on the grates. You can see that we have cookie sheets on the door because it is going to drip as you lay it out, and then there's those additional protection in the oven that we saw earlier. But you just, to get it, to keep it all off of your oven door, having those extra cookie sheets there helps keep it a little bit safer. We have our oven preheated to 175 degrees, and we're gonna cook this for 3 to 4 hours. That's at least when we're gonna start checking it, and it's gonna depend on how thick your pieces are. A really important part though is to keep the airflow going. You're gonna use a box fan or a fan like this and leave the oven door cracked for the entire duration of the cook time. Then 3 or 4 hours later, we're starting to check it and pulling off some of the thinner pieces and then leaving and rearranging some of the bigger pieces or the pieces that have thicker spots on them. And this too, as long as it reaches that internal temperature of about 165 degrees, you can cook it, for as long as you want to. If you like it really crispy, of course, do it for longer. Or if you like it a little softer, then you pull it off just as soon as it's ready. Now for the dehydrator, we really like both methods and we usually use both while we're cooking. The dehydrator is awesome for those smaller pieces. You can get really teeny tiny ones in there just with the way the dehydrator trays are. So we usually have one batch going in the oven and one batch going in the dehydrator. Now the dehydrator, you start the temperature at 160 degrees and you let it go that way for an hour or two. And then you can turn it down to 145 or 150 and let it go for another couple of hours. Really the key to both of these methods is to just start checking them regularly after the first initial cook time. And then you can kind of let it go to your personal preference. It's just important to get to that 165 degrees so you're sure that you've killed all the bacteria and it's going to be safe to eat afterwards. But once you've got that box checked, you can keep it going for as long or as short as you like. And there it is after about 2 hours in the dehydrator. Here's some of those really thin pieces coming off from the dehydrator. And these are some of my favorite pieces, like those. And then the last step is to just label your bags and package them up however you like. You can freeze this if you like. We keep it in the fridge in Ziploc bags like this because we're often divvying it up to share with anybody that wants some, which is typically a lot of people. So you got to be careful because this will go fast and people are going to want the recipe. Our kids love it. We just go through it so quickly. If you tried this recipe, I'd love to hear what you thought of it in the comments, and I hope to see you in the next video.